Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Shannon, and this is Starseed Evolution, bringing the wisdom and insight of the cosmos to you. I'm grateful that you're listening. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm grateful to share with you. Today, we're going to be looking at signs, symbols, and synchronicities, having conversations with the universe, and learning to develop our own language in communicating with the energy around us. The universe and our relationship with it is ever unfolding and changing. When we understand that the unseen realms are always communicating with us in conversation, we can have these daily conversations with our ancestors, with God, with Spirit, with our angels, with our passed on pets and loved ones, and even with our master teachers. And the cool thing is there's no one right way to do this. Instead, it becomes your own ability to create a language between yourself and the unseen realm. Now, before we begin looking at the different types of language that we can create to communicate with the universe around us, I'd like to first talk about two caveats that come to mind. Once we create our own sacred language with the universe, we also must remember that not everything that we come in contact with in our world is a sign. Sometimes life is just an everyday, practical event of being. So not everything is a sign. It's learning to discern when those signs come to you and how they reflect in what you're asking the universe in conversation about. It's important not to overthink or overanalyze everything in your environment all the time. The other caveat is this: do not just wait on a sign if there's something that you're wanting to take action about. Sometimes the universe waits for us to take action or take a step in a direction to reveal the next step to us. So sometimes the universe is waiting for us to move in the direction we're wanting to go. For example, say we're trying to decide between two different paths, or say you're in school and you're trying to decide which career direction you're wanting to go. Sometimes the universe needs you to make a decision before it can reveal more communication with you. Before we start talking about the different signs or symbols, I'd like to first read this poem to you by Mechthild of Magdeburg, who lived in the 1200s, and it's a poem about connecting with spirit, and it's called Effortlessly. Effortlessly, love flows from God into man like a bird who rivers the air without moving her wings. Thus we move in his world, one in body and soul, though outwardly separate in form. As the source strikes the note, humanity sings. The Holy Spirit is our harpist, and all strings which are touched in love must sound. So as we create this language with the universe for ourselves, imagining that we are the instrument, the harp, and that spirit is playing this instrument that allows us to connect with the universe around us. And so what I'd like to do as I name these different ways to connect with spirit is by sharing my own experiences and all the different ways that I hear from the divine. The first way I connect with the spirit world is through finding feathers. I often find beautiful feathers left by spirit on my walks, on my hikes, on my travels. The feathers for me are a way for me to know that spirit, that my angels, that my ancestors are with me. Sometimes I can feel connected to my ancestors, sometimes to my guardians, depending on when I find the feather, what type of feather it is, and if I'd had a question on my heart or mind at the time that the feather crosses my path. Many of the times, the feathers represent just a way for me to know that the loving presence of spirit or my ancestors are with me as I walk my path. For example, there was one instance where I was on a walk and I was talking with my angelic team because I was worried about some of my friends or family. And I was feeling overwhelmed and not sure how I should be present. And all of a sudden, one single small white feather floated down from the sky, gently drifting side to side, until it hovered in front of me slowly. I reached my hand out and allowed the small white feather to drift into my hand. And in that moment, I closed my hand around the feather and thanked my angels for being with me, for being with my family and friends, and just knowing that none of us were alone. And it allowed me to just listen and be present for those around me. And remember, as I describe all these different ways to connect with the spirit world, you get to choose how you want to create your own language with the universe. Another way that I connect with the spirit world, and in this case, it tends to be more with my ancestors and loved ones who are passed on, is connecting through coins. They might leave coins for me in unusual places that I wouldn't expect it, just to say hello and let me know that they're there. If you've ever seen the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, you'll remember that Patrick Swayze's character uses a penny after he's passed over in order to connect with Demi, who is still alive. And although the scene is quite dramatic with the dragging of the penny across the floor, okay, I'm not saying that this exact thing will happen, but the idea that our passed on loved ones can use coins as a way of just saying hello and being present with us. We ourselves get to decide how we want to create a meaningful link between objects so that the spirit world can talk to us. In my own life, I've been doing ancestral healing work energetically with my passed on grandfather, Ralph, for the last 25 years, sending loving energy of healing in order to help create some resolution in his soul. Out of these last 25 years, it's only been the last 5 years as his soul has continued to heal, expand, and awaken. I've begun to find single dimes randomly placed in my path along my day. So how would I know that it's him? Well, there's a link between he and I and the dimes. So when I was a child, when we would visit my grandparents, my grandpa Ralph would hand me one of those cigar tubes that was empty, and he had filled it with dimes. So about $10 in dimes would fit inside one of those cigar tubes. And I would take it home and add it to my piggy bank. Because he and I have that shared memory, then now through his healing in his soul body, when he wants to connect with me and let me know that he's there for me like a guardian angel, he's begun to place dimes at different times along my path just to let me know that He's by my side. And what happens is because I recognize that this is a gift from Him, then I acknowledge the gift. I pick up the dime and I place that specific dime among the other ones that He's gifted to me in a little carry case that's special, that reminds me of that connection with Him. Another sign, symbol, or synchronicity that I use to connect with the spirit realm are license plates on cars. Because nowadays you can have vanity plates. And so sometimes people put specific messages on their license plate on their car. So Spirit has a way of sometimes answering me by having a car pull in front of me that has a message on it that I'm needing to see. Of course, I don't look at every vanity plate and think it has a message for me, but if I have something in my heart or mind that I'm trying to discern about, or I'm needing to receive a message about somebody that I'm needing to connect with, Spirit has a way of having a car pull in front of me that has a message that I'm needing sometimes. Here's a story from my own life that reflects that idea of Spirit speaking to me through vanity plates or license plates. One of my best friends when I was growing up was not a person so much as a cat. Her name was Pitter. I had her from the age of when I was 5. As a kitten, she came into our family, and then she passed when I was 21. I got to have her companionship for 16 years. When she passed away, because I connect energetically both with the souls of people as well as animals, she became one of my angels and one of my angel helpers. I do Reiki sessions, and sometimes I do those Reiki sessions with animals. Sometimes I'll call in my friend, Pitter, who is on the other side, to be present with me and with the animals that I'm sitting in session with. A few years ago, I had a client who called me whose dog was sick and needed surgery. And so she called me and asked me if I would send Reiki, because Reiki you can do from a distance. As I sat down to do the Reiki session for my client's dog, I asked my angel kitty, Pitter, to also be present with me and with my client's dog. After I finished doing the Reiki session, I got up and I went to leave the house because I needed to drive to the acupuncture clinic where I was working. On my way to the clinic, as I drove there, I came to a stoplight. I turned the corner to head to the clinic, and a car pulled in front of me. And the car had the vanity or license plate that said Pitter on it. And I was both surprised and happy, and it let me know that my angel kitty was helping with this session. It was also like she was telling me that she was with my client's doggy and letting me know that everything was going okay. At the end of the day, I heard from my client, and she told me that when her doggy was coming out of surgery, out of the anesthesia, that the procedure went successfully and he was actually purring. And so this let me know that the energy of Pitter was sitting next to her dog during the surgery. Over time, the more you practice connecting with these signs, symbols, and synchronicities, it becomes a way to discern or hear what messages are coming through. And so it becomes this practice of being in conversation with the universe. There's one more sign, symbol, or synchronicity I'd like to share with you in this episode, and it's about picking up on animals and their telepathic messages or energetic connections with us. Because animals are super sensitive to energy and the world around them that we ourselves can't see with our eyes, they are more highly affected by the energy of things around them. So if we ourselves begin to pay attention to animal behavior, then we might be receiving messages about things that we ourselves are needing to look at. I'd like to share this particular story from my own life from a few years ago. I was living in the heart of downtown Tucson in Arizona, and I had a small studio. I had a neighbor who had 2 indoor-outdoor cats. One kitty was named Andre, and he was an orange tabby. The other kitty was black and white, and his name was Sebastian. Both kitties would come to visit me, but it was Andre, the orange tabby, who formed a bond with me. So he'd come in and greet me at the beginning of the day before I was getting ready for work. And then at the end of the day, when I would drive into the parking lot and get out of the car, he'd often run down the sidewalk and greet me when I got home. And this happened for many years. Over a 3-year period, he and I created a bond where we would take care of and listen to one another. There would be times even when my neighbor across the way would take a photograph of my front porch, and Andre would be sitting on the front porch waiting for me to come home for the day. Now, on one particular Sunday afternoon, I was in my studio and I was getting dressed to go to a gathering with my friends. They lived about 20 minutes away, and I was going to be taking my car to go over to their house. After I got ready, I opened the door and walked out onto the sidewalk to go over to my car to get ready to leave. Andre Kitty had greeted me on the sidewalk, said hello, and then ran ahead of me. And as he ran ahead of me, I was getting closer to my car, and all of a sudden I noticed that Andre parked himself behind the back wheel of my car. So by the time I got to the parking lot, Andre was lounging behind the passenger side back tire. Okay, so you might be thinking, no big deal, just shoo him away. Well, he was so far under the car by the tire, and I was on the pavement, that I was trying to reach under to get to him, and I was shooing him. It did not faze him. He just sat there, very still, and languidly relaxed, not budging. I stepped back and looked at him, and then I thought, well, I'll try one more time. So I kneeled down and I talked to Andre and let him know, hey, I'm getting ready to go over to a party at my friend's house, so if you could move, that would be great. He just looked at me, closed his eyes slowly, and continued to swish his tail and lounge there unmoving. Now, because I know to pay attention to animal behavior, I realized that there was probably a reason, even though I couldn't see one, of why he didn't want me to leave. So I decided to go off of his cue, and I sat on the curb of the sidewalk next to my car, next to Andre, who was sitting behind the tire, and I let him know that I would sit with him there as long as we needed to. Andre and I sat there in silence together for 10 minutes. Then, all of a sudden, Andre got up, walked over to me, rubbed on my leg, and I touched his head and said thank you. And then he walked off back to his home. When he did that, I realized it was safe for me to leave. I knew that energetically he was probably protecting me from something that might have happened if I left right at that moment. Of course, here's the thing. I will never know, because when I got in my car and drove to my friend's house, all was well. So the language of animals can be a vital part of connecting with the energy of the universe, of spirit. In the end, each one of us gets the fun of choosing how we decide to communicate with the universe. As you practice communicating and building this bond between yourself and spirit, you realize that the universe is always speaking with you. Be still, quiet your mind, pay attention, and allow your relationship to flow naturally. And most of all, have fun creating that connection. Thank you so much for spending time with me today in our episode. I'm Shannon. You're listening to Starseed Evolution. If you'd ever like to join me live, you'll find me on the app Insight Timer, which is a meditation app where I teach live events for spiritual discernment every week on Wednesday evenings, 7 p.m. Arizona time. All of the live events are donation-based, so you're able to join those free of charge. I will make sure to create a link in the show notes so that you can check out my calendar of events if you feel called to joining me live. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have an awesome day. Namaste.